All right, and we are live. Hey everyone, this is Undead3XVI, and welcome to the first episode of One on One. It's going to be a show where I bring in people from the community and developers, and we're going to tell you live. And I'm hearing back feedback already. There we go. All right, nothing like hearing echoes of myself. So yeah, today we've got Stinger LG, also known as Michael Mullis, on the show. How are you doing today, sir?
How we doing, man? This is great.
There we go.
It's nice to be on with you.
All right. So today we're going to be talking a little one-on-one. Mike, why don't you give everyone a little background on how you got started and everything else from gaming to journalism and everything in between?
Oh, good Lord. All right. So I'm gonna try to keep this a little succinct. I know I have the reputation of turning every show I go on into a 3-hour extravaganza. So I will try to be. I'll try. I'll give you the summary, and then you can ask me whatever. So back in the 90s, when in the height of my Sega fanboyism, the Dreamcast came out. I was still very heavily into the Sega Saturn, that kind of thing. I worked at a piano store selling pianos, and anybody who's ever sold pianos in a strip mall store knows that you could go days upon days upon days without seeing another human being. So I had lots of time for gaming, and there was a 56K modem at the store, so I would go and I'd browse websites, and a guy reached out to me a while after I started going onto this Dreamcast website and said, "Hey man, I need some editors. Do you want to come and write?" I said, "Dude, I've got so much time, it's not even funny." So I started doing some writing for a site called Dreamcast HQ, and after a while, they took notice of us, and I started to get some contacts within Sega, and they sent us a system disk, which you would use to play pre-run games, previews and stuff like that. So we started not just doing Dreamcast news and game reviews of games we bought. Sega started sending us preview games. Then all of a sudden, I started calling third parties, and they started sending these discs too. And in 1999, when this thing came out, we didn't think that was going to be like that for us at all. And by the time it died in 2001, I had already been to a couple of E3s. I knew I had met Peter Moore. I had really gotten into this, and to this day, I still have a disc from Bethesda, from my friend Pete Hines, who still works at Bethesda. It's one of the very few, if any, bowling games that Bethesda made that never got released. And I have a disc for it that every once in a while I pop it in and play just to
a bowling game, like a little like sports bowling.
PBA 2001.
Oh my God.
I still have it. So
wow.
So when Sega started its 20-year spiral into the kind of hell that it's hit now, I decided when they decided to go through third party and give up the hardware, that I really liked what I was doing. I had a couple of guys that worked at Dreamcast HQ that also really liked what they were doing. So I said, why don't we take a shot at running our own site? We'll make it multi-platform. Because obviously Sega is going to be putting stuff out on the Xbox and the PlayStation, and at the time the PS2, and even the GameCube. So why don't we expand ourselves and we'll create a site? And we decided to call it Next Level Gaming, because we were still at heart, we were still Sega fanboys. So we kind of played upon the welcome to the next level catchphrase that Sega had. So we called ourselves Next Level Gaming. And we kind of parlayed some of the contacts we had made in third-party publishers and with Sega themselves with starting up this new site. And it really helped because we got off very fast. So I did that until 2007 when I retired from doing games journalism because my kids started to grow up. My now oldest of 3 was only, one child at the time, 2 years old, started to need dad's attention. So it was very hard for me to do a full-time job, which I did as an IT person at that time, and then have to come home and run the website. And, the rest of my crew there, they started to have children and they had, and so we just kind of gave it up. By that time, I had been to about 10 total E3s. I've had I've got a couple of box quotes to my name, and one appearance in MLB 2K7, which is my pride and joy, as a relief pitcher for the 1988 LA Dodgers unlockable team.
Wow.
Which is pretty damn cool because not only did it's a funny story how this happened. I really had good friends at 2K Sports, and these guys, I mean, such good friends that I got to interview the 2 guys that played the commentators for the 2K Sports football series.
Oh my God.
The Dan Stevens and Peter O'Keefe.
Yes.
I got to interview them, and they actually, at the time, I wish I still had it. They did a bumper audio for us. It was really, really cool. And so one day out of the blue, my rep called me and said, I need something from you. I can't tell you what it is. I just need you to say, yes, I'm good. And I said, what the hell are you getting me into? And he said, I can't tell you. I just want you to say yes. I'm like, all right, whatever you need. So next thing you know, he sends me a preview code of 2K7 on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. And he says, put in this code. I just want you to take a look and make sure you're good with this. Fire up the game. I'm looking. And he goes, okay, now pick the 1988 LA Dodgers. Okay. Start a game. All right. And all of a sudden, I'm picking a pitcher, and I'm like, hey, Andy, that's me. And he said, yeah, pick yourself. So I do. Start the game up, and I'll be damned if not only does the stadium announcer not say my name, but John Miller says my name. And I'm like, oh my God. So to this day, anybody who has a copy of MLB 2K7, if you unlock the game and you go to the 1988 LA Dodgers, I have a relief pitcher for the Dodgers. It is so freaking cool. So
I actually, you know what? I actually have that game. I'm actually going to boot up my 360 for that.
Yes, and when you do, I want you to hit me up because that was like one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in that time. And I have memories like that all throughout that time, and it's really neat to see. So that's really the genesis of how after I gave it up for a while, I actually got out of gaming altogether for a couple of years. Just time and work and stuff, and I just didn't have the time for it. And I really started to kind of get back into gaming about a year before the new consoles came out. And so I broke out my 360, my PS3, and I hooked them up, and I was playing some stuff. My kids played on their Wii. We had a Wii in the house. And I started to play again, more and more and more and more. And then E3 2013 came around, and the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 were on the horizon and being talked about at the shows and stuff like that. And I'm like, I really would, yeah, man, how could I talk about this stuff again? How could I get back into the world of media? And I saw other people doing YouTube podcasts and videos and short stuff, and I'm like, well, I don't have time to write anymore, but I could maybe do a weekly show with a couple of my guys. So I pulled together my original crew from NL Gaming, and we did a few episodes, pre-recorded Skype episodes,
Yeah.
with just audio and the logo, um, and kind of just bantered about and talked games and had a really good time with it. They sort of didn't have the ability to commit time wise because they have families too, but I really wanted to keep going. So um, I went through a number of different co-hosts and stuff like that over the course of a couple of years, just kind of trying to get the right fit, and came across the team I have now. And um, man, the guys that I do this show with now are just such great guys. Peter and Nate and Juan and Frankie. I mean, we we're all gamers. We all love to just play. We all have opinions about stuff, obviously, um, but we just we just talk games. And then Juan started doing a retro segment where he said, "Hey, man, I've got a capture card. I love to play all my old stuff, be it Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Xbox, PlayStation 1." And he's like, I could do some, I could do some like a weekly write up of a game that I like. And so we started doing these Juan's retro recommendations, and those are unbelievable. And so we've got this thing where we're more of a show. Like, we're dropping the podcast moniker. So we're not going forward. We're not going to be the original Next Level Gaming podcast. We're going to be the original Next Level Gaming show. And, we're going to continue to kind of mold segments and things like that and try to be more than just what everybody else is. And no, not to take anything away from other guys' podcasts, and like, you guys know over at Tick how much we love you guys,
Yeah.
and how much I love Anchor and you and the entire multiverse thing. And we've been on multiverse, and Anchor's been on our show, and we got to get you on our show. And I've been on Fame's 2X podcast rather. So I love what you guys all do. I just want to not be a fish in a barrel full of fish.
Yes.
So
I know where you're coming from on that, because when I started doing my own podcast there past couple of weeks, I sat there and went, I want to do something different, because there's so many podcasts and there's only so many topics. And I feel like eventually you're just all rolling some, like, no offense to any podcasts out there, because there are a lot of great podcasts out there, but I feel like some podcasts just end up repeating each other. And I really wanted to avoid that, which is why I've gone with the format I've gone. And I really have an appreciation for what you guys have done in the transition over to Twitch. Your podcast quality is amazing on Twitch for your show. And the fact that you guys almost always have someone streaming is fantastic. And like,
we're working on that. So that's something that's something we're trying to get together. We haven't quite. I've got a couple of guys from the WDFC podcast, Fastback, Super Cooper. Those guys have expressed an interest in doing some streaming for us as well. So and we're trying to get that up and running. Our thought is, if we can get enough content, if we can get enough people that, my thing is, I'll run the thing. I'll run the channel. I'll put together the marketing for it. I'll I'll build you your an overlay. I'll do all the things to try to get you out there. If you don't want to try to invest the time in running your own channel, but you really do want to stream, I can offer that to people. So we're still working on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it takes time. Obviously, it's something that takes a lot. Running a stream team takes, I'm gonna say, as much effort as running a site, if not more, because they have time coordination, everything else, and then scheduling people to certain spots, or some people work really good on certain spots, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really interesting how you guys went from YouTube to Twitch. I think it's something. You guys were one of the first shows that I followed that did that, but I see going forward with how YouTube's going and everything else, I definitely see a lot more people taking that format, and it's a wider audience on Twitch. Everyone always talks about how YouTube's a bigger site and everything else, but not everyone that goes to YouTube for gaming.
Yeah,
that's the main thing.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with that. I think I mean, I agree with you. I don't agree that YouTube necessarily is the biggest audience. I think Twitch has more gamers.
Yeah.
You know, YouTube, you have to fight every other video on YouTube. So you have to come up against every other genre of video that's out there, where with Twitch, you're targeting gamers. You're targeting a specific subset of people that are watching it, and what we're hoping is that, you know, those are the guys that don't watch YouTube videos for the crazy drama, for the stuff that goes on, which we're not about. We don't have that. We don't do that. You know, we just, you know, we want to talk games. We want to talk, you know, we want to talk about what's going on in the industry overall. You know, we want to be, but we also want to have fun, and we want to give people just something different. You know, we just want people to have a place where they can come into the chat room, feel safe, you know, feel like they can come in and talk about games, feel like they can have a different opinion about something than the rest of us. And for us, you know, sometimes we'll seek out a topic that we don't all agree on, and just to get some, you know, just because that's people have to understand that's okay. And you know, Twitter is certainly not the place to do it.
No, definitely not.
So you know, we want NLG to be that place where they could come, they could check out some great gameplay, they can interact with us while we're streaming, and then on Sunday nights they feel like they're part of our crew. You know, it's why we put the chat up on the screen, because we want people to feel like they're part of the show, not just watching it and talking amongst themselves. We want their opinions to be heard. We want, you know, without them, I could go to a party chat on the PS4 or Xbox One and talk to my friends. But we want people to be part of what we're doing. And in some ways, even push it if people are not enjoying what we're doing and they make it known. You know, we want to do what they want to see. And so, you know, Juan's Retro Recs have been a big hit because it's just something they don't get anywhere else. And it's something that transcends console warring and fanboyism and things like that. You can look at a game that came out 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and enjoy it for what it is. And Juan brings you, you know, the complete ins and outs on it.
Yeah.
And so just something different.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the retro recommendations too, because that's what honestly been one of my favorite segments, because I started watching NLG. I can't put a time period on it. I actually did not become active on social media for video games until 2014, almost 2015. I just played games in my apartment and had a close circle of friends that I always did competitive gaming tournaments with. And that was pretty much my experience. And then I started watching YouTube because of Anchorman, because I met him in a Facebook group. We started talking. I started watching his podcast. And then I think you were on at one point on Multiverse at that point. So I went and started checking it. You guys, like, I'm pretty sure if I go back and check, I'm pretty sure in my first 5 follows is Anchor and then you guys.
Nah.
If I look back on my Twitter account. And I always come back and watch your guys' stuff. I can never catch it live because of my work schedule. But it's always interesting just with the dynamics you guys have and how it's just game talk. And that's something I really love that you guys do is you guys are passionate about. There's no bickering. There's difference of opinions, but there's a thin line between having a conversation of different opinions and then dissolving into bickering or having what I would call a constructive conversation of differences. And you guys are very good at having a conversation about differences. And it really inspires me because I'm so new to everything, because I'm trying to break into games journalism. I'm trying to do all these different things. And it's great to have a mold, because when there's so much clickbait and there's so much drama and it's really discouraging when you're first starting out and you can't get views because everyone's wrapped up in community drama and everything else. But seeing like your guys' channel pushing forward, and you guys are doing new things that's bringing you guys success, gives people like myself and others that are trying to push out quality, good content and try to keep the BS out of it. It gives us a lot of hope. It's really inspirational, especially for how long you guys have been doing it. It's fantastic.
I appreciate that. And I mean, I also have tried to model against some of the guys that I feel do it right. And those are the people that I want to surround myself with in the community itself. People talk about an Xbox community, people talk about a PlayStation community, people talk about a Nintendo community. I like to be part of a gaming community. And one of the things that I have always loved, respected, enjoyed about the Inner Circle and what you guys do, what Cal does, and you and Anchor and Fame and Mike P. The Truth, you guys, you try to do that too. You try to talk about the game industry, and you guys are Xbox centric, but yet it's a positive Xbox experience to listen to. It's not beating down the competition. It's not making fun of things Sony and Nintendo do, things like that. You guys you talk about what's going on in the Xbox world. You do talk about what's going on in PlayStation and Nintendo world, but you do it with respect, and you do it with with a great host in Ivan. I mean, he's great to have on, and we love having him on our show when he comes on. You guys do it right, and if anything, I want NLG to be like that, and I want NLG that you guys are some of the ones that we want to associate with. That when people think of us and want to think of other podcasts and shows to go listen to, that they pivot to guys like you that do it right and that are part of what's good about gaming and not what's bad about gaming.
Yeah, 100%. See, that's always been my main focus. I had a really rough high school years through various reasons, everything else. I would not consider myself a very good person through my formative years. So I try to combat that aspects of my life by being overly positive on this platform and through how I raise my kids, obviously. But it's such a big deal to me to treat others like they want to be, like to treat other people with respect and everything else. And even people, I have a tendency, there's people I don't like on social media that I do not get along with. I try, as a golden rule of thumb, I will not speak out against those people. I won't make videos. I won't do anything like that because it's just not my jive. I come here to talk video games. I come here to get away from everyday work drama that I have enough in my life. And I just don't see the point of doing that. And I want people to come to my shows and like the multiverse show and everything else. I want people to come there for gaming. I don't want them to come there for anything else, because you can't be taken seriously in the industry if you're just saying ludicrous crap all the time. People won't take you seriously.
Well, and then you'll get people that follow you waiting for you to do it, so that you can be, you could be the subject of their videos,
yeah,
or their memes,
yeah.
and just look. I'm going to be 45 years old this year, which is, I'm still in my prime, just so you know.
Okay. But, oh, that means I got another 20.
Oh yeah, you're good, man. You're good to go. I just, I don't have the time for that. I don't have the patience for it, and it's not my desire. My desire is, I have a love of this industry that brought me back to the industry. It, like I said, it took a couple of years off of gaming, and I came back, and I fell in love with it again. And a lot of it has to do with the people that I'm surrounded by. In honesty, guys like Frankie Aller, who's in the chat room, by the way, he knows that I've said this time and time and time again. Guys like him are the reason that I'm still around. When I looked at this industry and the YouTube thing, and one of my former co-host goes crazy, and a couple years ago, and I almost gave it up. And Frankie comes along and says, "No, you're not." And he jumped into the podcast, and he started to come on with me, just him and I. And then Peter joined. He was in the chat room, and he's like, "Hey man, I'll come on with you one night." And that was like 2.5, no, not, it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's almost 2 years ago. And here he is 2 years later. He's a bedrock staple of NLG. I know Frankie has Short Pause Gaming, and that's really his home, so to speak. But I consider him one of our pillars. I consider Nathan and Juan pillars of our show. Like these guys, but it's much more than that. It's the things we do beyond the show. It's gaming with Nathan and Peter as much as I can. I used to do it every night. It's been a little harder with work, but whenever I can get on and just hang out with them in party chat and just be around them, and these guys make gaming fun for me. And then Anchor will jump in and chat with us, or just people in general that just want to come and have a good time. Will, Super Cooper and Fastback, the guys from WDFC, those guys, I mean, these are fantastic people that we get together and just play and have a good time. And it's why I'm still here. These guys are why I'm still here. I could walk away from this and go upstairs to my wife and my kids, and I could leave social media. I could leave YouTube and Twitch. I could leave all of that. But the people that are around me, and that includes you and Mike and Ivan and Cal and all of my friends over there at Tick, you guys are the reason I'm here. And all I want to do, and using NLG as a vehicle, is I want us. Yeah, I've pined for some of the glory days. Come on, nobody's. I'm a human being. I remember what my successes were.
Yeah,
and would I love to do that again? Of course I would. Do I know what the reality is? Of course I do. So I pull from it what I can, and what I get out of NLG is the joy of doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And on the pulling ass social media and everything else, I was there a couple months back. I posted, I think I said something on a podcast or something. Someone sound clipped it. And I went to bed the one day I woke up, I had 986 Twitter notifications. I had threats against me. I had threats against my children. Someone dug up my Facebook and was photoshopping pictures of my kids.
That's ridiculous.
All over, I think it was a 18-second clip. And I really considered, I was like, do I really want to do this going forward? Because like I'm starting to write, I'm starting to do reviews, I'm starting to do articles. Do I really want every time I post something have to deal with this? Because that's what social media gaming has become, is we see it every day. Someone, I won't use anyone as an example, but say IGN posts an article that 50% of people don't agree with. Well, that article and whoever wrote it will get passed around the social media circle for that whole day. And that'll be the big topic everyone's talking about, blowing up, everything else. And I sit there and I go, do I really want that? But then on the flip side of that coin, and what keeps me coming back, is there's so many great people that'll support you when you put out the good content. And there's so many supportive people that will support your content if you're making good content and you're just trying to be honest. If you're giving an honest opinion, everything else, whether it's you disagree with someone or anything else, and I always say that, is there's tons of people I disagree with online that I consider friends. And they may have completely different gaming views than I do, political views. It doesn't matter. Perfect example is Mike from the Multiverse Show. I disagree with him politically. I disagree with him on video game stuff.
I don't even tweet politics. I don't even. Oh.
I try not to. It's a golden rule. No. But like me and Mike disagree on like 98% of things, but we've never ever gone at each other heavy about it. It's always been respectful. It's just been great. And those are the kind of interactions I stick around for. And I want to talk to you kind of about, because we talk about, backlash that we see because of social media. I want to talk to you about like what it was like writing articles and everything back when you were heavy into it versus how you see people react to it now. Like, did you ever, get the threats and everything on forum boards back in like 2006?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And it's really funny because I go back and I look, and there's still stuff out there in Operation Sports, and there's a guy out there who he hated my stuff so much that he actually said, anytime I see anything that was written by Mike Mullis, I just pass it on by. I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to say to that? I mean, how am I supposed to, so, sometimes you can't please everybody. And there's a way to engage those people, and there's a way not to engage those people. I always found that the easiest way to take on criticism was to go find out what was disliked. I would certainly give my my take on it, and I give you a great example. So I came with props. So this is Forza Central. It's an old Forza. I think it's still around, Forza site. And this was back in 2005. And I posted some Forza videos from what was the game that year? What was it was probably 2 or 3. One of the
2, I'm pretty sure.
2?
Yeah.
So somebody blasted me about the music that I used in the videos, because back then we stored all of our videos in on the server itself. There was no YouTube. So this was even before game trailers came along, and so we had videos that were 320 by 240 resolution, and we stored them on the site. You could click on them or you could save them. And somebody was like, "Oh, these videos aren't all that good. The music sucks." So instead of going on, but what I would do is, so here's me. I would go on and I would simply just say, "Hey, these are my videos. The choice of the music. Here's why." You know, and people respected that. Where was it? It said, "Oh yes," and I will defend my music choices. But I usually said, "This is why I did it. This is what my review was. This is why I'm sorry you didn't like it. This is why I said it." And a lot of times, what I would get back was, "Hey, I appreciate you doing that. I became very popular on this forum because I wouldn't back down from what I wrote or what I did or the videos I made, but I would at least say, 'Hey guys, I know it's not for everybody, but here's why I did it,' and that got respect. A lot of times I see now, I don't know I don't know. Maybe I've aged out, but yeah, you could take it personally when somebody says something nasty about a review or something like that. And in Twitter, it's much worse than what they write on forums nowadays, because forums can be moderated, Twitter cannot. But I've seen too many game reviewers just go berserk over somebody criticizing them, and get nasty back. And that's not the way to do it. That's the wrong way.
Do you think it's funny you bring that up, because I hate naming names when it comes to industry stuff, but there's one guy I find that's really, really abrasive in that aspect, and that's Jim Sterling. I find is very abrasive in that aspect of things. Like, I appreciate some of his views, but I feel like with some game journalists now, and I'm wondering if back then it was the same, I feel like there's some game journalists that just feed off of sensationalism and getting the rise out of people.
Because that brings
views.
More, yes. So that is part of it. And look, Sterling's work speaks for itself. Yes, some of it is controversial. I can't say I agree with a lot of it, but I always thought he presented himself, minus the theatrics, he presented himself well as far as how he gets his information across.
Yeah.
It's the reaction. It's the reaction it's his reactions to his feedback that I think is maybe what you're talking about too. Somebody will not like his work, and instead of just saying, "Hey man, it's not for everybody," well, you're a prick, so what do you know? And that's again, what it does is the idea is on Twitter to get the ooh effect. And then that Twitter conversation goes 700 deep, and all of a sudden he's got people who haven't looked at him before that might be jumping in and looking at his stuff, because they see him pounding on some poor schmuck that decided to take on his rants of the day, and they're like, "Well, now I want to see more rants." So I get it. There's a modicum of that happens.
It's funny you mentioned that too. It comes down to like how you present things. Like, I've done quite a few articles for TickGN. My most popular article was breaking that you could plug your keyboard in your Xbox One X and access graphical settings on PUBG. And that literally got 3,000 views within the first 45 minutes of being published.
Oh God.
And like, I posted a video on Twitter. That video on Twitter has 89,000 views.
That is.
And I got sourced from Kotaku, and everything sourced my Twitter from it and everything else. And people were making articles about it. And I'm sitting there going, I've done other great stuff. This was just an accident. I was checking for a friend, and it blew up the way it was. And then people were like, I had people telling me that, oh, mouse and keyboard support would ruin the Xbox One. And then I had all sorts of, I'm sitting there going, I just literally was reporting on the fact you could plug a keyboard in and walk around in the game. All I did. But it's amazing how, and I think if you're going to use sensationalism and you're going to use, say, clickbait titles, because there are specific YouTubers out there, I won't name anyone, that do have a tendency to use very clickbaity titles to get a megaton of views. And which is fine. That's what they do. But don't be pissed off when people come at you for your views if you're going to be that provocative. That's
right.
Always what I've maintained is if you're going to write a really, like, if you're going to write a piece, 10 reasons why the Xbox One destroys the PS4, you need to be prepared for that. But if you were to write the article and put the title as 10 things the Xbox One does better than the PS4, you'll get a different reaction. You'll still have some people get really ticked, but it's all in the wording. And I feel like maybe back in the day, you guys maybe didn't use as much clickbait, but then again, I see some of the old Nintendo magazines and stuff.
Oh,
and
good Lord. Clickbait goes back such a long way. I mean, back then it sold magazines. You know, when Nintendo and Sega were going at it, you know, trust me, EGM magazine, Electronic Games magazine, they took Nintendo. They pretty much were the arm of Nintendo in that era, and a lot of the things that they wrote inside their magazine was for attracting the Nintendo audience to their magazine. And so, you know, that stuff has happened since the beginning of time.
And see, people seem to think that, like, it's only been happening in the past couple of years that video games media has been sensationalizing everything. And if you go back to, like, where it started and everything else, it's always been that way. It's the same thing as console wars. I remember, who was it that you got into it with? It wasn't really you getting into it with someone, but you guys were arguing. I think it was like Sega, what was it? Sega Saturn versus something else, or I can't even remember the discussion.
If it's, let's see, my two main ones are anything Sega and and Atari ST versus Amiga.
That's what it was.
Oh, so okay, so that's all in fun. Oh, that's me and Deacon. That's honestly all in fun. But I always bucked the trend of what was popular. When everybody else was doing Commodore, I was doing Atari. When everybody else was doing the Atari 2600, I had an Intellivision. When the amount of people who don't know what a ColecoVision is because they were already playing on an NES. You know, I
actually have a ColecoVision in my closet. Actually,
you are the man. You know, you can get that sucker modded for HDMI, right?
What?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. I know I'm doing that paycheck.
Yeah. So yeah, that stuff is all in fun. That's honestly none of that is actually serious at all. You know, that's just me ruffling Deke's feathers because he's a big Amiga guy. And the amount of people who know what an Atari ST and an Amiga are on Twitter is pretty much Deacon and I.
I had to Google it. God, I feel like
what the hell is an Amiga?
Like, I didn't own, like, to give you an idea of my gaming background is my parents owned gaming PCs, and that's what we played on. So, like, I played, like, Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, Star Wars game called Dark Forces I remember playing as a kid, which was fantastic on DOS. I started on that, and
Jedi Knight.
Yes. I started on those games, and my mom didn't believe in owning a home video game console. My mom literally told us the one day that the home video game console was the devil, and that we would all become lazy.
Wait, was your mother Mrs. Boucher?
Video game consoles were the devil, and we'd all become lazy couch potatoes if we owned a video game console. Meanwhile, me and my siblings would fight over who got to play Doom next on our one home PC. So the first console I actually owned at home was a Nintendo GameCube, and I spent way too much time playing that. So I missed a lot of games. Like my cousin played on the N64, so I played a good chunk of N64 games, but like SNES, NES, I missed that whole generation of games. And I've been trying to go back and like, without caving and buying SNES and NES minis, I've been trying to go back and play some of these games. And I feel like if I go out and buy the consoles, I'll have more fun with it. I just don't feel the love of playing the games when it's with an emulator on my PC.
I don't either.
It doesn't feel right. I even have the classic controller, like the USB classic controller. It doesn't feel the same.
And even though Microsoft announced Xbox, OG Xbox backward compatibility, I've trusted it as much as I've trusted the 360 backwards compatibility, which is not much. And so the last time I was out at a game show, which was the Coleco Expo last year, which was a big debacle. But somebody was selling an old OG Xbox for $35. I grabbed that hard. So I'd like to pick up some of these older consoles if I get them running on my TV right. But I like the feel of going back to the old stuff.
And see, now that I have kids, everything, like my oldest is only 2. But the last weekend, I was looking for something for the kids to do. I don't really like them playing with my Xbox One X or PS4. I'm kind of a little iffy on that 2-year-old with controller. Not the sturdiest controllers in the world anymore. So I was like, you know what? I pulled out the N64. I put in Mario 64, and I just let her play that. And she had an absolute blast with it. And then after my kids went to bed, I probably spent a solid 4 hours playing that game again. And you're right. There's something about playing it on the original platform with the original controller and everything else. I'm hoping with the OG backwards compatibility, because I didn't play the original Xbox. I'm interested in the titles and try and track down some of the really good games for the OG Xbox. They're either outrageously expensive for no reason, or they're really hard to find. So I'm hoping with OGBC and plus with the Duke controller making a comeback, which as much as I love that controller, I still don't know where the hell they were like, what we should do? Should bring back the biggest controller we ever had. Everyone's complaining about the Xbox One controller. They're like, it's too big. They're like, no, we should do? We should bring back the OG. And like
the one that everybody hated so much.
Yeah. And like, Seamus Blackley, I absolutely love his posts on Twitter, and I absolutely love everything he does. And one of the best quote tweets I ever saw him use is someone was like, why would you bring back that OG clunky thing? And he's made a remark along the lines of, well, sometimes the OG clunky thing just works just as good as the new. And I have to agree. Like, there's just something like, I have tons of OG backwards compatibility games on my X. I have all the ones that came out with that release slew that they did after E3. I don't think I've played any of them besides Ninja Gaiden, which I almost broke my Xbox controller on. Well, that's another story.
That's right. Ninja Gaiden is the Dark Souls of...
Stop. I honestly can't wait for the Dark Souls remaster, because Tick's going to be the first site where we have the Dark Souls of Dark Souls games.
Nice. Dark Souls. See, what you say is Dark Souls is the Ninja Gaiden of. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But by the way, here it is. I found it. I've been looking ever since because I don't want people to think that I'm making shit up. This is 2005. All I have to see are the two words Michael Mullis, and I know to stop reading. So, and all this was a what the hell was this? This was an MLB 2K, the original MLB 2K review that I did. Oh, that's funny. So see, folks, that's how it works.
It's just so amazing how gaming's come so far, especially if you look how far, even if just we're talking this generation, about how far it's come. Like, it blows my mind, but because I'm fully invested in this generation. Like, the Nintendo GameCube, I had like 20 games. Xbox 360, I probably had about 50, I'm going to say. But I'm coming up on 500 Xbox One games. And
Good Lord, man.
And like 120 PS4 games.
Wow.
Not to mention building a PC and probably buying a Switch. So like my backlog is just destroying me. I'm good on games till 2020.
Good grief. Wow.
I'm more invested in this generation, but it's so amazing how far we've come with this generation, from how the games that we got at the start of this generation to the games we're getting now. If you go, like, even how games progressed from like the end of the 360 into the new generation, do you think there was ever, like, when we went from I'm trying to think games that came out at the tail end of the 360 generation, 360 PS3 generation. You look at like okay, we'll go The Last of Us, and what was the last Xbox exclusive that came out? Halo 4? Halo 4 was Halo 4 was
that was sort of towards the back end.
Yeah, so Halo 4, you look at how those games looked, how they play, and then you look at how Rise would be a good landmark of how graphics proceed at the start of the Xbox One, and then you look at PS4, you'd say The Order would probably be the most graphically amazing game at the start. Was there any point with any other consoles where at the back end to the start of the next generation, so to speak, do you think there was such a leap?
Well, it's hard to say because, every generation had the luxury of being very long, and so by in the 16-bit era, not really. You had a set amount of things you could do. Genesis could only do 64 colors. Super Nintendo could only do 256. So there's really only so much you could do on the screen.
Yeah.
You had limitations. The way Sega got around those limitations was by bringing out new hardware. So, the 32X, the Sega CD, they tried to Frankenstein stuff onto the Genesis to keep it moving and to increase its fidelity. Nintendo went a slightly different route. They did stuff in their cartridges and chipsets. Even the beginner set of CD-based consoles could really only do so much. Everything back then was how many polygons you could put on the screen at one time, how many triangles you could put on the screen. Have you ever heard in the last 15 to 20 years how many polygons a console drives?
The only reason I've heard about that term specifically was because of my teacher when I was going through for gaming coding in high school. That was the only reason I know what that is. I have not heard anyone other than my teacher, who was a huge Sega fanboy, talk about polygons at all.
That is it really is. It's the only time that you ever heard about it. What you hear now is what resolution the game runs at, how many frames the game runs at. Back in the day, we didn't hear about games running at 60 frames per second. We just didn't. And if games did run at 480p or 720p, they were special. They were special case. There was we talked about it in our reviews and stuff, but it was because they were, it was something special. It was something new.
A technical landmark, so to speak.
Technical landmark. that we just, we now you just don't talk about anymore. Now it's how many P's you're pushing across.
Yeah.
And so that's something that that's something you have to remember, is that back then there really was a lot more limitation to those consoles. So it was harder for the games on the back end to be better than the games on the front end, like they are now. The Xbox kind of did it. The PlayStation 2 kind of did it. Really, the PS3 and the Xbox 360, to me, on the Atari 2600, you could only do so much.
Yeah.
On the ColecoVision, you can only do so much. On the NES, you can only do so much. On the Genesis, you can only do so much. It really was this advent of how they began building consoles, sort of like mini computers, that got kind of broke into the curve of, well, a game, at the end of the generation could look better than a game at the beginning of the generation.
Yeah, and when the console started having specific UIs and everything else, and you didn't have to just plug the game in to boot it up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
It's so crazy to me because I was one of those people. I got invited to a Facebook group originally. I can't remember who added me into the Facebook group. I did no gaming stuff at all. I actually used to work for a retro gaming webpage. And what we did is we did retro reviews and we sold retro gear. So it was a store/website combo. And it's run by one of my friends that lived out in California. And what we do is I'd go find cheap deals, because retro hardware is actually really cheap up here, which is amazing because nothing else is cheap up here.
Right. Everything is twice the prices is down here. How do you get that?
Like I've got the green OG Xbox and I picked that up for $15.
Oh.
I've got a watermelon N64, which I picked up for $20.
Oh.
And like, I'm extremely lucky in that aspect. And I really enjoyed doing the retro end of it. There's so much gear and stuff I'd have to pick up to be able to bring that to my channel now. Might be something I do down the line if money gets better, but it's so strange with how resolutions affected people with this generation, how much of a focal point it became with this generation. Because you know what? When people ask me in 360 PS3 generation, because I was a Sony guy up until the 360, I never knew what resolution the 360 or PS3 ran. I still don't really know because I didn't really pay attention. I just would sit there, I'd buy a game and look at it and go, wow. Like, I think the biggest wows I had in the 360 generation was trying to figure out how they packed Skyrim onto a 360 and made it work, kind of. I say kind of because, God, that game was buggy as hell.
Yeah, but it was fun.
It was fun. It was endlessly fun. And
you want to know why I held on to my love of Kinect for so long? Skyrim was a big part of that. Because while everyone else was focused on, well, the fact that the camera wasn't that great, I understood that. But Skyrim made such good use of the audio mic array that instead of, when you came up on somebody, you didn't have to pause the game so you could go equip your sword and your shield and stuff like that. You just said equip sword and shield, and you would go shoom, and you'd be ready to go, instead of literally stopping the game.
yeah.
And then you could say the dragon your dragon speak either in English, or if you were geeky enough to learn the actual dragon speak, the Kinect would hear you and would do the spells. And I thought that was one of the best ways that you could utilize the Kinect. God, I remember when it one of the first NBA 2K games that had Kinect support. If you cussed, you got a technical foul.
Yes, I remember that because I remember me and my friend bought it. My roommate at the time bought it, and we were playing it. And my roommate was quite well. I'm a rageaholic when it comes to games. He was worse than I was. Between both of us, I think we probably broke about 14 controllers in the like year and a half we lived together. But like the amount of technical fouls we got, it got to the point where when we were like, "Oh, you want to play that? Yeah, let me just unplug the Kinect first." But that was a device that had so much potential, and it did a lot of different things really uniquely. And it's a shame it died. It really is. And like I didn't have one for my Xbox One. I didn't really care for it for the Xbox One, but on the 360, the Kinect was such an essential piece of hardware. I couldn't imagine playing my 360 without it because I had my Xbox 360 Elite originally, and that got the red ring of death, which I'm pretty sure that was one of the few days I cried. And so I went, I need a new 360. I had the money for it. I went to my GameStop. I was like, my 360 just died. They're like, well, you can buy another Elite, but for the extra $50, we can get you the R2-D2 Xbox that comes with the Kinect.
Ooh.
I was like, you know what? I've never used the Kinect, and I'd be kind of cool to try. So I played a couple of the Kinect sports games and the Star Wars Kinect game, which was actually kind of fun. But what the Kinect was really great for, as you said, was Skyrim, and there's a few other games. I'm trying to remember there was a game.
Dead Rising 3. Because you made a sound and the zombies found you. And Fantasia Music Evolved was I'll still roll that game every once in a while. I will pull that game out and I will play it every once in a while just because it's so fun.
Yeah, one that I really enjoyed because I've got a lot of nephews and nieces was that the Disney Adventure Park.
Zoo Tycoon as well.
Yep, Zoo Tycoon as well.
And I won't buy the remastered Zoo Tycoon or because I can't use my Kinect because they gave me the finger, and as a game I can't buy for my kids because that's one of the fun things they had was like feeding the animals and washing the animals off with the hose. They can't do that. Yeah, they can't use it. So I'm not gonna buy the game.
It's interesting how back at the 360 PS3 generation, the Kinect got a lot of flack. It sold really, really well, but the Kinect got a lot of flack because they said that it was leading to games being too interactive. Was the thing I always heard is that it was too immersive. You'd have to be up doing things, and now with the rise of VR. It's interesting to see how the Kinect was bad for doing it, but VR is the way forward. I'm not saying VR is bad because VR is amazing.
VR is very fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's all the things I loved about the 360 Kinect, plus more, because the immersion's better.
I think it is highly ironic that you cannot get a Kinect anymore, but you need a PlayStation camera if you want to use VR. It's required. It comes the bundle I won from the PlayStation Bra show had it in it, had the camera in it. There are more people probably right now that own PlayStation cameras than own Kinect. If you had told me that at the beginning of the generation, I would have told you you're nuts. And yet here we are.
And you know what's so funny is I remember my Walmart is really dated. They still have PS3s out of stock cards in their gaming display. And they actually still sell PS2 memory cards, which is absolutely fantastic. But the PlayStation camera and Move controllers were like $10, bargain bin. And then PSVR came out. And all of a sudden, they're back in the glass cases for $90. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm sitting there going, I wish I had predicted this because this would have saved me money down the long run. Because right now, stateside, you guys have the PSVR deals on right now, and it's like $199 for PSVR. I was at GameStop today, and for the Doom bundle, it's $586 plus tax right now. So that's not anything that's making its way into my home anytime soon.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how we've progressed this generation so much. To just link it back in, is we went from 900p and 1080p with the base PS4 and Xbox to now we're pushing, well, we're trying to push 4K as the standard. It's not the standard yet. I know people think it's the standard. It's not. But we're trying to push 1440, 1800, and even 4K we're not even at the end of this generation yet. So it sets up to be interesting to what hardware is going to look like going forward, as well as what is going to be usable on these consoles, because there's a lot more power in these consoles now than there used to be. Because if you had told anyone that you could run VR even at the tail end of 360 PS3 and the early start of the Xbox One and PS4, I was very much in the camp of we're never going to see 4K on consoles for another 10 years. We're never going to see VR on consoles because of how demanding it is. Yet here we are 3-4 years later, and we do have games that run in 4K, and we do have a substantial library building on the PSVR. But not necessarily full-built games and everything else. Not all of them are full, fleshed-out titles. Like, we're not seeing Kingdom Come Deliverance 40-hour RPGs in PSVR yet, but it'll get there. And it's kind of interesting to see what going forward we're going to see, like what else could come to the consoles. Like, I know everyone's talking AR for Xbox, which would be absolutely insane to run on a console.
Well, and I don't know what Microsoft's plans are. They see the market. I don't know what they're waiting on. Other than I don't know what they're waiting on. I really don't. I don't know what they're waiting on. And I tell you, for all that I had said about VR at the beginning of how limited it is, it's not quite as limited as you might think. When you start to see what you can do in VR, other than, my train of thought at the beginning was, well, VR isn't going to be great for anything other than first-person games. How are you going to do a platformer in VR? And I'll tell you what game's going to answer that, Moss.
Oh, yeah.
And I played the demo of Moss, and I was blown away that you basically are put in the middle of the platforming area. And Moss, the little mouse guy, he basically moves around you in full VR, and you feel like you're in the environment with him. So it's not a first-person game. You're not looking through his eyes. He's moving around a three-dimensional playfield, and it works. It works fantastic. It actually reminds me now. I'm dating myself, but there was a Sega arcade game called Time Traveler.
Yes.
With holograms.
Yep. This
is like the evolution of that, and it was amazing. And I'm like, you know what? I can't continue to think about the limitations of VR because there may not be the limitations we think. I could see. I'd love to see a sports game, a VR sports game, not something where you're looking through the eyes of a batter or a pitcher or something like that, but where the baseball diamond and the base and the field or the football field or what have you is in a three-dimensional space, and you're watching the game in a three-dimensional world where when you hike the ball and you go back and you throw the ball, instead of watching the full field go forward like this and the ball is going up and down kind of on a 2D plane, you see that ball actually go into the air, and you can look up and you can look down and you can look around and you can see. And I think I think there's a good market for those if somebody wants to jump on it. EA's got a shot at jumping on that if they want.
Yep. I think too what we're seeing is when VR first came out, I set it up for failure for two reasons. I set PSVR specifically up for failure. Sony's absolute horrible track record for supporting anything they put out on their console that wasn't their games, because PlayStation Move, everything else, they kind of just half-assed most of their secondary devices, so to speak. Right. And VR not being a super popular thing. And like the first VR games that came out, it was like, but these games that they're building from the ground up on VR, like all you have to do is, I'm lucky enough that one of my friends has PSVR, and I played Doom VR. And holy hell, I never thought that they'd be able to get the intensity of that game to run so well on a VR headset, especially on a console VR headset. But it's an absolutely amazing experience. It's absolutely terrifying. Now, the motion sickness I got from Doom VR was insane, because apparently you're supposed to scale up in the different types of games you play. You're supposed to start slower and then move your way up. Yeah. I just dove right into Doom VR. I had a blast. I was nauseous for like an hour afterwards.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that. And look, I set up VR to fail only because it had nothing to do with who was doing it. I bought the 3D glasses for my TV, and they're sitting in a drawer right now doing nothing. And so I'm like, it's a gimmick.
Yeah.
I'm not as sure. It's still got some gimmicky things to it, but I'm starting to see where they're looking to develop whole experiences, whole game experiences in VR rather than just a level here, a level there. And if they get that far, then I think that's when, especially PSVR, I think that's when it'll really begin to take off, when people are making full games for it that you play from start to finish in VR. And games like Moss, games like I think Resident Evil 7 is a full game, I believe.
Yeah, front to back VR.
Yeah, so you get those games core in mass, and I think that's when VR really starts to take off.
It's amazing because there's some games I sit there and go, that game was in VR. That'd be phenomenal. Games like What Remains of Edith Finch, Hellblade, some of those more emotional, leaning more towards walking simulators, but story-based experiences, those kind of games will flourish in the VR market going forward.
Yeah, Peter says Farpoint is phenomenal.
Oh, Farpoint is amazing, and what they did with that game was fantastic. I'd like to see a game like Killing Floor 2 or something like that. Some of those like more mindless games would do really well in VR. I've been saying Left 4 Dead 2 in VR, and I'd be happy. But it's amazing how the device has moved and how much they've managed to pile on software for it. And I think it's really smart what they did with PlayStation VR is the fact that Sony realized that if they wanted to get the PC guys that were making VR games, they had to get more of the market share. And if you want to get more market share on a new device, what do you have to do? You have to make software for it.
Yep.
So they were churning out, even if it was things like Job Simulator VR, they were churning out, they always had a new VR release every week. And then the PC guys were looking at it, and soon enough, like PSVR, because I'm doing a research article on it for Tick right now, and PSVR sits at 55% of the market share of the VR market. And it's been out for a year and a half less than the Oculus and the Vive. So if any company, and it's really smart because Sony now doesn't have to pay developers to make VR games for them, because if a company wants to make a VR game, they're going to want to make it for PSVR because they're over 50% of the market share.
Right. They did. They got it right with the pricing. Even at $399, they were still at least $200 cheaper than Oculus, and what, $300 or $400 cheaper than Vive, something along
Yeah,
those
I was
lines.
gonna say, just based off, like, I do it off my prices here. So PSVR is $499. The Oculus Rift was $899, and the HTC Vive was $1,100. And now PSVR is, I can get the base headset, just the headset, for I think through $299.
Yeah, it's $199 here.
Yeah, it's about $100 more expensive. You can get an Oculus for $499, HTC Vive for $499 as well. PlayStation literally just came in, dropped the PSVR, undercut everyone by 50%, sold a ton of units. Now they've got games they don't have to pay for onto their platform, and the other companies had to cut their prices because there was no way you could justify them for $400, $500 more expensive.
No, and that is, price can be a killer for you.
Look at the PS3, Xbox 360 generation stuff,
and then look at the Xbox One, PS4. I mean, that was that. Price can be a very big differentiator. And if you are going to charge that much for your stuff, you better back it up. And as good as the Vive is, I'm still sure that price tag scares people off because it's also not a mainstream device.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think Sony has done an excellent job with PSVR is proving to people that this one is sticking around. Look at how many games we have coming out for it. This is not a one and done. This isn't Rob the Robot or the Activator or whatever other gimmick companies come up with. This is something that they wanted to continue to invest in. They wanted third parties to continue to invest in, and they got over the original skepticism of how long is this really going to last? Yes, they say it's the future, but they say everything's the future. So, is this actually where gaming is going? Right now, they're doing a fantastic job of saying whether or not this is the main way you play, we have the software to support what we want to do here.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's guys I know on Twitter that I talk with, and some of them play 30, 40 VR games. And other guys picked up VR for a select handful of games they wanted to play. I've pretty much come to the terms with myself that I'm probably, when Moss comes out, that's when whatever the price may be, I will drop money on a PSVR headset because that game is phenomenal with what they've been doing and everything else. Like, the whole interaction with the character and everything else is just, it's phenomenal.
Absolutely. And that's what drives. That's what drives.
All right. So I think I've chewed up enough of your time for tonight. You want to make sure you can get some Sea of Thieves in tonight for yourself.
Yeah, this is also a lot of fun. If you've got any past related questions, I could do a little AMA with you if you want.
Beautiful.
Because I know pre-show there were some things you were asking me about. I'd be glad to I'm always up for reminiscing.
I'm trying to remember a game. Okay, this was my first experience with the Dreamcast. Okay, so I had a friend growing up, and his dad always bought wherever the newest game console was, they owned it. And the Sega Dreamcast came out, and he bought it, and there was a fishing game on it that came with the controller and everything.
Sega Bass Fishing.
Thank you. Trying to figure out what that was.
They actually had two. The first one that came out with the controller, which I gotta find a place to put it up. I have the controller. Was Sega Bass Fishing, and then the sequel to that came out a couple years later was Sega Marine Fishing. Those were great because the controller actually worked. It had gyroscopes in it. You could actually cast. You could actually, and you had to go back and forth with it.
It blew my mind when I was a kid. I was like 6 or 7. I was just like this.
Yeah, and here we are. We're fishing. Fishing. It's like 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
Game 18-wheeler. You're driving a truck. That's all you're doing, and yet we would play that game for hours.
And that's what's so amazing about some of the older games is they had the simplest mechanics or were about the simplest things, but it was so new with what they had at the time. That's just like if you made just a straight up fishing game now, like there's some for the Xbox One, there's some for the PS4, but like I don't think a lot of people are going out and buying them.
Not in mass, but you know what though? You'd be surprised how many people buy Farming Simulator.
Oh my god! I know there's a couple of guys in your podcast that do because I have them on my Xbox friends list. I'm like, are
farming, farming. This is like Goat Simulator when it came out. And all you do,
I'm guilty of supporting Goat Simulator.
All you do is go around with there's not even like a story mode. It's just you go around with a goat and headbutt thing, and that is your game. And how can I jump off the top of this building with my goat?
It's so funny because I feel like that was what opened the gates for getting PC indie games onto the Xbox One. That really drove it games like I Am Bread, which is the most frustrating game I have ever had to play. I've never hated a piece of bread.
Oh man. Oh, so yeah, that's those were the days. And back then you could write this stuff, and like I said, you could know that somebody might disagree with you on a forum somewhere, but it was few and far between of anything else.
I found that most of the people that hate the work I do specifically, usually if I look into their gaming history, they're more of the casual type, I'm going to say. They're the sports, Call of Duty, and Battlefield along those lines.
Shooty, bang, bang fans.
Yeah, I was one of those for the longest time.
They're your dude bros.
Yeah, the dude bro market is where I get a good majority of my... I was playing, for example, Shadow of the Colossus, and I was using the PS4 share feature on it, which is fantastic. So I was sharing some screenshots. And I didn't have my phone on me because it was charging in the kitchen. So I played the game for 2-3 hours, opened up my Twitter, had 126 notifications. Because two guys literally went at each other about remakes versus or backwards.
And then, yeah. Oh, my God. And then, God forbid, we all know who Rand is. Who Rand Outdoor is. Oh my God, he made a video about that. He has been consistent in his despise of backward compatibility. It's not a secret that he has never liked the idea of backward compatibility. When I brought up the idea of having Xbox backward compatibility, he was like, that's the biggest waste of time. And then when they actually announced it, I was like, hey Rand, so about that, and he goes, fuck you. he said this is such a waste of energy. I can't believe they're doing it. So but he made this video about how he likes remakes and remasters over backward compatibility, and Twitter lost its mind. And I'm like, guys, have you ever heard him talk? Because that's his thing. It's not. He's consistent about that.
Yeah, no. And you know what? I love Rand. I'm a huge achievement hunter nut. So Rand is the epitome.
Right.
Between him and Patrick Macca, they both blow my mind in the...
Yeah.
ran because he goddamn beat every game on the Xbox 360.
Yes, including Barbie's Adventures.
Yeah, like this is the guy that literally I remember in like his really early videos, like when he first started going on YouTube, instead of just doing the achievement hunt, he started doing topic videos, and he was showing off, and like he had like the North American version, the EU version, the Japanese version. He'd beat the game 3 times on all the different versions, and like him not caring about backwards compatibility, I can totally understand. And I am not a huge backwards compatibility fan. It's cool. It's great to have options. It's great for people that maybe you were on PS3. Like I never played the Gears of War series. I've been an Xbox fan for 9 years. I'd never played Gears of War. And I bought the Ultimate Edition, played it, loved it. And then I had the option to go play 2, 3, skip Judgment. And I really enjoyed it. But I would not have been able to play those games without backwards compatibility.
Right.
And like, I don't use backwards compatibility a lot. I'm ashamed I went back and played Black Ops 2 for a whole weekend when it came BC available. I bought Spec Ops: The Line this weekend because it became backwards compatible. That's one of my favorite games from the 360 generation.
I think my issue is there aren't enough of them that are
must-plays.
I mean, the ones that are coming backward compatibility, these little piddly games that I would never have bought the first time. So
yeah, see that's the backwards compatibility program. Sometimes I'm sitting there going,
why?
You guys spent people's time on that?
Right. Yeah. I don't understand sometimes the choices they make.
It was like there was a Games with Gold game, Monaco. That was a Games with Gold game at the start of the Xbox One generation. And then a couple of months ago, they're like, it's available through backwards compatibility. I'm like, why? I can buy it on the Xbox One.
Right.
And like I feel kind of the same way with OGBC to a degree. I say to a degree just in the fact that I didn't play a lot of the games, so it's like, oh, okay, like this is kind of cool. I'd like to go back and play some of the games. Like God, what's the one I got through EA Access? Black?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the latest ones.
Yeah, I never played that in my life. Played it for the first time, went, wow, did I really miss? I was a shooty gang, bro, and I did not play Black. Like, what am I doing with my life?
I hear you.
And I'm going to spend most of tonight playing Fable Anniversary through Game Pass.
I got to get Game Pass. I need to go ahead and because I don't have enough money to buy real games. So
yeah, it's a great option, and there's some of the games they're adding to Game Pass. It makes me really happy. Some of the games that they added Darksiders series, which I got, which Ivan gifted me the first one. I played through the first one, loved it. I was like, oh, second one's on Game Pass. They keep giving me, and with them saying that every month they're going to be adding games, and the current rumor is they're adding 8 to 10 games and only 1 or 2 backwards compatible games every month. They keep doing that. It's going to become a even more fantastic service as it goes along.
The first run games, though, the day one release, the day and date releases with the retail for their exclusives. I have said this before. I'm going to say it again, and it will come to fruition as Microsoft kind of gets if they get their feet under them in the software division. That is a game changer. That is a bold move. That is a potential industry shifting move. It just has to play out. I think people don't see I think they don't understand the ramifications of what this is going to do when you can basically use a subscription to play the same games you normally couldn't go out and afford if you're me.
And see, I use this as an example. My my nephew, his mom's not the best off right now, just going through a divorce, everything else. So kind of in a bad situation. He wanted to play a bunch of games on his Xbox One. He couldn't afford them. I game share with him, so he has good access to games, but I had to pull my game share because I was game sharing with someone else. So I felt kind of bad. And then they announced that Game Pass was, you were going to get the new Xbox One games coming out on. You were going to get Crackdown 3. You're going to get Sea of Thieves. You're going to get State of Decay and all this coming in Game Pass day one. So I went out and I bought him a year's worth of Game Pass.
Nice.
He has access to all these games. He's got access to all the first-party multiplayer games. You want to play Halo? Cool. You want to play Gears? Cool. You want to play Sea of Thieves when it comes out? Cool. It's everyone thinks on social media, especially in our gaming community, that everyone's as hardcore as they are. Everyone's going out and buying every game that comes out and everything else. Everyone's buying every game that comes out every week. Everyone's dropping $300 a week on games. Realistically, most people, I think there were stats on this. I think it's like the average gaming consumer picks up like 4 to 5 games a year. The average.
Average.
Yeah. And we always base everything that these companies do off the hardcore, how it affects us as the hardcore group. And if you buy games every week and you buy, like I myself, I buy a ton of indies. I buy a couple AAAs here and there and everything else. I buy way more games than I need to. It's not necessarily geared for us though. But if you tell someone who games casually and they just like playing their games, hey, you can get Game Pass for, I don't know how much it is for a year.
$10 a month here.
$10 a month. It's same here. So for $120, you have an access to over 100 games for the whole year.
And then the $30 it costs for EA access.
Yeah.
So you don't forget that. And I guarantee you that Game Pass spawned from EA access. They saw what happened with EA access. EA put out, numbers that suggested that their stuff's their subscription is a hit. And I think we're probably a year out from another major. I think the next company to do this, if they don't partner up with Microsoft for Game Pass stuff, you'll see. I think the next one's Ubisoft. I think they're headed towards a similar thing.
I agree, and Ubisoft has done a fantastic job making the games as a service model look good.
Yeah.
They've literally taken games that weren't good at launch and have literally 360'd them.
Yes. Well,
some of them. Okay. Like,
but you do that, they're round to the beginning again.
Okay. Damn it. Okay. God damn it. 180.
Well, I'll tell you the biggest example of that is Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah.
Which still sells. It still charts. That game has 2 years worth of legs, and it is become such a big game.
Yeah.
Now it's an esports game. Now it is. I mean, it is. That is. The Division is sort of headed that way. I see a lot of people getting back into the Division. They have figured it out, and either they're going to, like I said, they're either going to hook up with Microsoft and do Game Pass stuff, or they're going to open up their own subscription, and I know I'll jump on it.
Oh yeah, and something they've really done well. It's something I always gave IO Interactive a lot of credit for with Hitman, is that people always say games as a service doesn't work if it's single player, and they've proven with Assassin's Creed Origins that games as a service works.
Can work.
It can work with a single player experience. And Assassin's Creed Origins, I haven't played it personally, but from what feedback I've gotten, I know you were playing it insane amounts.
Yep, I was playing it daily.
Is that it's one of the best Assassin's Creed games, and there's always a steady flow of content.
Yeah. There's always something going on, and you can see people in it. You can't meet them or anything like that, but you can see what other people are doing in the game. Yeah, something like that works. Hitman and its episodic content works. You have to. This is where stuff like Game Pass could come into play too with episodic content. We were talking about Game Pass a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I mean, what they could offer an indie developer upfront money to put their game in Game Pass. I know it was weird. We were going through some really crazy numbers that, but the math was kind of funny. Somehow I got, an indie developer getting $10 million to put their game on Game Pass. But I mean, there's a percentage of the monthly subscription that you could give to an indie developer upfront that says, you know what, put your game on Game Pass, even if it's just for the first 6 months. Say we talk about game preview. Yeah. Put your game on Game Pass for 6 months. We will guarantee you X amount of revenue because they've got it coming in from the subscribers. We'll give you $1 million to make your game. Put it on Game Pass for 6 months. How do you turn that down?
And see, I have a friend that's in indie development. He's trying to get his first game out. There's 4 people in his studio. He's trying to turn out a cutesy kind of platformer and everything else. And he said something like Game Pass is huge for indie developers because he says getting onto the Xbox and PlayStation platform isn't that hard. Getting your games onto those platforms can be challenging, but it's not super hard. But he says funding your own game and then getting money from Sony, Microsoft, make a game is almost impossible. And he says with something like Game Pass, he's like, a lot of people won't play $10 indie games because they're like, it's $10. What content could it have? Not a lot of people will play your game to try it out so that, they might love it, they might not. But when you put it in something like Game Pass, oh, this new game just got added to Game Pass. You know what? I'm going to download it and give it a try because it's free.
Right. And if that developer has some upfront money that they were given to put that game in Game Pass, maybe that helps them in development.
Exactly.
The other thing too is the only other way you can really, if you're on your own, you can either crowdfund or kickstart, which is not a guarantee, or you got to go find a developer or a publisher rather. I'm sorry. I'll take the most recent example that I can think of. We've over at NLG been following a game called Raging Justice by Making Games. Nick and his wife.
Yeah, and, I interviewed them back 2015.
Oh, fantastic. Cool! Yeah, he owes me a. They owe us an appearance. But he had been making that game for that long, and they just got picked up by Team 17, and now they're going from being just an Xbox game to Xbox, PS4, and Switch. And so you could do it that way, but that's not easy either. You have to impress a publisher.
Yeah.
So I can see Game Pass. I would love to see Game Pass, let's say, resurrect the developers of Blues and Bullets, because they made 2 episodes and then went under. Imagine if it was a game that everyone should play, but now why? Because you only get 2 episodes of it and it's done. Imagine a game like that on Game Pass where the developer then has the money to finish the game. So I mean, this is potentially game changing on many, many fronts. So
yeah, and it opens up a lot of options for people to get their games out there, and I'm always for that. It's funny you bring up Team 17 because they are honestly one of my favorite publishers / developers for the amount of indie games that they churn out. Like one of my favorite games, The Escapists. Worms is up there too, but The Escapists, which is essentially just a prison escape simulator. Love that game. I spent I've got like 400 hours in that game. The first one, I've just started playing the second one again. I do their feedbacks. I do all their surveys. They're fantastic. And not everyone can get those kind of deals. Like we look at Cuphead as an example. That game would never have come out if Microsoft hadn't been like, here's the money, finish it. And I don't think Cuphead had such an impact on me. I haven't finished it yet, but it made me really challenge what I thought about video games as a whole. And the fact that you can make something fun, you can make something challenging, and it can still be art at the same time.
Right.
And it would have been really hard for them to pitch Cuphead to, say, any other publisher. Or I could see why other people, like other publishers and developers, might have been like, you know what? We might not want to touch that one. That one's a lot of work. But Microsoft shelled out the money. It turned into a huge hit for them. Cuphead was awards. It sold well. Did really well. And the studio got a lot of success out of it. I look forward to seeing what they do next, especially if Microsoft's willing to invest in that studio even more. But I think I've been saying this for a long time, and people disagree with me a lot on this, is everyone wants the single-player deep experiences that Sony's churning at. That's what people want for their exclusives. But Microsoft can't beat Sony at doing Sony.
No, they cannot. And I think that's where and I think they know that.
I 100% know Phil Spencer knows that he cannot beat PlayStation at being PlayStation, because PlayStation has always, ever since even early on, they always had those really deep RPGs, single player experiences. That's what they were built on. Xbox is like the cornerstone of multiplayer, co-op, and everything else. And I think Phil Spencer understands that he can't, like, he could sit there and copy everything PlayStation does, and they would probably find some success to it. But by doing this completely different direction, it makes the console appealing in a different way.
Right.
And like you can look at Sea of Thieves as an example. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's just going to be streamer fodder, just like PUBG is, and But
yeah, I think Rare would love for Sea of Thieves to be as popular as PUBG.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing, and the other thing too is the head of Rare Studios came out and said that their cancellation on pre-orders was less than 2%. After that beta, which is astronomically insane. And it's the top thing on Twitch and Mixer again on a technical beta.
Because because you know what? It's two things. Number one, it's a damn good game. It is a game that is going to that will surprise people because of what it does. The criticism that Sea of Thieves is getting is funny to me, because we're in a position where walking simulators sell really well, but Sea of Thieves won't. Stop. The other thing too is everybody complains about Rare not being Rare. This was the complaint that we've gotten for 2 generations. It didn't, they became an Avatar and Connect Studios, Yeah. Okay, fine. But you guys are the same folks who completely dismissed Grab by the Ghoulies, which was their first game on the Xbox, on the OG Xbox, which happened to be a quality game. A quality game. You come at me all you want. It's a quality game. Cameo was a quality game.
Yes.
Rare made those games. I'll grant you Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. That kind of went away from Banjo's core. I'll give you that one. But, Conquer Reloaded. Those that trifecta of Rare games that came out were really good. Yes, they went to focus on Connect because they wanted to. Sea of Thieves, for all of the, well, this isn't Rare anymore. Rare's not the same Rare. Rare doesn't get to do this. Rare doesn't get to do that. Craig Fulton has said Sea of Thieves is a game they have wanted to make for a long time. This thing has been in mothballs for a couple of generations, if I remember what he said correctly. Like, this is just something that this is a game that Rare has been itching to make for a long time. And so now they're making it. So if you are in the camp of, well, Rare isn't Rare anymore because Rare doesn't get to make the games that Rare wants to make anymore, this is your game. This is what Rare wants to make. Yes, I get it. It's not Perfect Dark. It's not Conquer. It's not another cameo. I would love to see another cameo, straight up. But right now, this is their signature game. And you can tell. There doesn't seem to be anything that's forced. It doesn't seem to be anything that is that's been pushed on them as far as conceptualized ideas and stuff. And if you watch the making of videos that they do, they're all running around the Rare headquarters like pirates and whatnot. It's a game that it looks like they are in love with making. And that, I think, is going to make a lot of difference in what the final product is. And anybody who's played that beta should see what we're in for.
And
That's
see,
my...
to me, when people say it doesn't look like a Rare game, it bleeds Rare.
It bleeds Rare. Are you kidding?
Like the art style, the humor, everything about it just bleeds Rare. It's different than what they did before. Like, I'm a little partial. I'm a bit of a Rare fanboy, which is a weird fanboy to be.
Not at all.
Apparently. But it bleeds that charm that they had with their older games. And I really, really am looking forward to this title because, as you said, you watch the development videos. They're not, nose to the grindstone, like, they're working hard, but they're loving it. And they're making a game that they want. And I don't think under old Microsoft, like Dom Matrick Microsoft, I don't think they'd be making this game.
No, I don't think so either.
And I think that's what we're going to see going forward with Microsoft is I always see on social media and everything else, there's a lot of doom and gloom with Microsoft because they had that transitional period. You don't want to start off your generation with replacing your head of your direction. Like, we went from Dom Matrick to Phil Spencer, two hugely different guys in what they believe and what they have envisioned for the system. I think what we're starting to see now and going forward, especially with this year, is Phil Spencer's vision for Xbox. And I think that's why 2017 was so lackluster, was because it was that middle point where they didn't really have anything because Matrick had X amount lined up, and then Phil Spencer had to take a couple of years to get into the saddle. And I think what we're going to start seeing is we're going to see Phil Spencer's vision for the Xbox. I think what they're doing with Game Pass, backwards compatibility, all these different aspects, they're really setting themselves up for a good kickstart for the next generation whenever that rolls around. Even if we have standard console generations through Microsoft anymore. Right.
Well, now I'm still, I still have a little bit of skepticism on this because, at some point you got to show the goods. And where Microsoft right now has a big problem is outside of Rare, their studios are very game-centric. The Coalition makes Gears. 343 Industries makes Halo. Turn 10 makes Forza. They don't have a studio other than Rare right now that can make a multitude of games or different types of games. That is one of the things that they lack at the moment. And what was surprising to me was the news this week that, well, first, if you back up a minute, Phil Spencer said they were committed to rebuilding their internal studios, even if they had to go and buy them, right?
Right.
They had a perfect opportunity to buy Deep Silver, and somehow THQ Nordic this week bought them. Deep Silver, who just published Kingdom Come Deliverance, and who owns Saints Row and Metro, and yet they went to THQ Nordic. Now, don't get me wrong. I think THQ has a rich history of games. Remember, before 2K Sports had them, THQ was who published all the wrestling games from Ukes. THQ did a lot of the, and I say great, come at me, a lot of the great SpongeBob SquarePants games, a lot of the great kids games. They had the Nickelodeon franchise. THQ back in the day, and they even at one point had the UFC before EA got the UFC license. So at one point, THQ was a pretty big deal in the industry. They're back now as THQ Nordic, not the same, but they just bought a big time developer with big time titles. And the first thing I thought was, how did Microsoft miss that one?
See, I'm with you on that, because my biggest problem with Microsoft as a whole is communication. Communication's always been my biggest problem with them. And people can complain about delays and everything else that comes with giving a roadmap of your games, but I'd rather have a roadmap of what content you're bringing me for the year. And even if one or two things get bumped back, that's fine. Like with Sony, we know God of War is coming April 20th. Detroit's supposed to come before June 30th. We're supposed to. Dreams comes out this year. What's the fall title?
I don't believe Dreams is coming this year. By the way,
I don't either. I still don't think Days Gone's coming this year either.
Nah, if it comes, it's going to be November. I think this is November. I think Days Gone is your spring 2019, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's where it should be.
Yeah, no, I think if you're a first party studio and you're not publishing Call of Duty, Battlefield, or anything like that, avoid October, November.
Yeah. Yeah.
EA has proven in themselves they can kill their own games.
Yes.
With themselves.
No. But I mean, they to give you an idea, one of the right moves Microsoft made was to buy Mojang, right?
Yeah.
They paid $2 billion for Mojang and have probably gotten that money back already, I would imagine.
Easily.
THQ Nordic bought, so they bought it was Koch Media, Koch Media, whatever the name of the overarching, and they own Deep Silver for $121 million. That's a drop in the bucket for Microsoft to put out.
120, especially since we just came off of rumors of them buying EA.
Right. Yeah, that. So I'm not ready yet to throw my lot into the great.
See, for me, I would have more faith in Microsoft if they let the coalition do that game that they were making before they took over Gears, when they were Black Tusk. I would have a huge amount of more faith if they'd let them do that game. Like, yeah, keep part of the team on Gears, let them do something else.
Right.
Same thing with 343. Microsoft could have had...
Well, 343 was a little different. 343 is made up strictly of, honestly, a former Bungie.
Yeah.
And it's headed by Frankie O'Connor, who was the head of Bungie. I mean, the 343i was what they were the mantle holders for Halo. I'm okay with that. Turn 10, obviously Turn 10's a racing studio. You're not going to get them to make a third-person platformer. But you're right. Black Tusk could have been something else. They could have, or at least if you're going to give them Gears, then keep Lionhead. What did you close Lionhead for? If you're going to cancel, you want to cancel Fable Legends, fine. But the rumor is that Playground Games is making Fable. So why couldn't Lionhead make Fable? Lionhead made Fable before.
I feel like with the whole switch with Fable, that tied into them. Because who was the head developer for Fable? I can never remember his name.
Oh, Peter Molyneux.
Yeah, I feel like they closed Lionhead and closed that Fable because they want Fable to go in a different direction, and he would not have made Fable in a different
He
direction.
had, but he hadn't been part of Lionhead for years. He had
Really?
gone, yeah, he's not part of Lionhead. He went off and made his own studio. He left after the Milo debacle, um, and after the Fable Connect debacle.
Oh,
He left. Yeah, he wasn't part of Lionhead um, for Fable Legends.
I don't know. Microsoft just has a really bad track record for turning and burning studios. You just have to look at their relationship with Epic Games to kind of wonder how they handle these things.
I don't know. But that's why I'm not. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I think Phil is an admirable guy. Phil has done some things that I don't like. Phil has done some things that I do like. I'm not ready to. I need to see it before I just outright believe that the ship is totally headed in the right direction software wise. Um, it always made me scratch my head that he was the head of Microsoft Game Studios, and yet even with Don Matrick at the helm of Xbox itself, he's at the helm of Microsoft Game Studios. He is the counterpart to Shuhei Yoshida on the PlayStation side, who's head of Sony Worldwide Studios.
Yeah.
Somehow, his draught of first party games, and then this thing where we're down to 3 studios basically. That's I don't understand that. I mean, I remember the rich history of Xbox first party games when Shane Kim was head of Microsoft Game Studios. Yes, they benefited from having Peter Moore come in and really tie up the third party gap, but there was a point in time when we were getting Project Gotham Racing, we were getting Mech Assault, we were getting some of these great first party games, these Fusion Frenzies, these if you go and you look at Microsoft's first party stable of IPs that they own, it is amazing what you see. I don't think people know this, but Microsoft owns a baseball IP. They could make a baseball game if they really wanted to. They own the High Heat IP, but he's come out, Phil, and said, "Well, I don't want to pay for the Players Association fees and stuff." But you can't look at what's going on with now it's Sony Santa Monica. It's 989 Sports is how I always think of them, and MLB The Show, and the absolute success that game is, and not understand why Microsoft wouldn't want to make a game that's like it. Right now. So we said we had 343 Industries, Turn 10, Mojang, which they own in the Coalition. So I'm sorry, it was 4 studios. But what's Mojang going to make besides Minecraft? We don't even hear anything now about anything new coming out with Killer Instinct. They don't have Press Play anymore. They don't have Fossa Studio. They don't have Lionhead. They don't have who a Twisted Pixel they got rid of before they really gave them a chance to do anything. And if you go back and you look at what they own as far as IPs, they own Battletoads. They've been talking about a rumored Battletoads for 4 years now and nothing. They own Crimson Skies. They own Lost Odyssey. They own Mech Assault. They own stuff like, they brought out a Phantom Dust remake. Great. They own Project Gotham Racing. They own Rally Sport Challenge. Now, Rally Sport Challenge was made by DICE, who's now owned by EA, but they own the IP. these are things that that they could do. They own. You remember on the 360? You remember Explosion Man?
Yes.
They own that IP. They own that IP. They own Starlancer. They own the Gunstringer. They own Viva. They got Viva Pinata. They've got. I mean, goodness gracious, they've got games they could come out with. We have been asking them for a Blinks for years. That.
The way I always view it when it comes to Microsoft and putting out games and everything else, if Bubsy can get a game in 2017, there is no excuse that any of those games can't be made now.
Right. I love them for bringing Voodoo Vince back, but it was a remake. Make a new one.
Yeah. No, and see, that's my problem too with Microsoft is Super Lucky's Tale. I'm going to use as the example. Not the first game in the series, because the first one was a VR title that nobody heard of. It was a fun little game. It lasted me about 10 hours. It wasn't bad. It was kind of old school feel, but it was new. Yeah. It wasn't a full price game. I feel I got my money's worth for it. And it was fun. It was charming. Why not do that with any of the other IPs you own?
I don't know.
It blows my mind. Because you can nickel and dime people for games by just putting out short little $30 games. The amount of times I buy a $30 game because I'm like, it's $30. How bad can it be?
Yep. I would have taken another Max Curse of Brotherhood type game. I thought it was really innovative at the time. I would take another Kalimba type game. I mean, Press Play. They gave them the ability to make a new game. So they brought out prototypes and then they closed the studio. They had Project Spark,
which that game could have been huge.
Yeah,
that was such that game in itself was such a missed opportunity with just the depth it had, what they could have done with it, and everything else, but it was just mishandled, unfortunately.
And now you see Dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of long-term problems ahead of them because they can promise new games, they can promise new IPs and everything else, but you can't just pull them out of your butt.
And you can't rely on third parties to make them.
No. And at this point, Sony has all the third-party deals locked down for the most part. They still can get some, but Microsoft is going to have to pay a hell of a lot higher price to keep a third-party deal locked down on the Xbox platform versus the PlayStation platform, just because of the 35 million to 73 million install base difference.
But I also think Microsoft could have gone after some stuff too. I guarantee you that it had Microsoft really leveraged their relationship with Remedy. Remedy wouldn't be working on multi-platform games right now, no matter what the gap is. If they had invested in another Quantum Break to build upon, okay, people said it had problems, fine. Build upon what the problems were and fix them in the gamer's eyes and come back with another game. That works. That can be done. They decided not to do that, and they decided to tell them, well, we're not going to make your Alan Wake game either. So Remedy said, fine, let's go multi-platform. Insomniac, they could have gone to Insomniac and said, hey guys, look, we thought Sunset Overdrive was a better game than what gamers gave it credit for, but let's do it again. Let's get back out there and let's put some commitment to this IP. And I guarantee you somebody else would be making Spider-Man right now, because Insomniac would be making another. Sure, they might have gone back and made Ratchet and Clank, but they would be making the second Sunset Overdrive.
See, Insomniac is one of those studios that I think is insanely talented.
Oh yeah,
and it blows my mind that Sunset Overdrive era that Microsoft didn't try to lock them down.
Yeah.
And like they do so many great, like they did. Insomniac did the Resistance titles on PlayStation, didn't they?
Yes, and Haze.
And yeah, I'm sitting there going, there's tons of great Insomniac IPs, and I'm pretty sure they own most of their IPs.
They do, and that was the whole point of them going with Microsoft for Sunset Overdrive, was the ownership of the IP.
Yeah.
And they could have easily come back to another game. They squandered, look, pulling Kinect out of the box. People can disagree with me all they want, but I think that broke Harmonix, because Harmonix put so much time and effort into Fantasia, and once that user base was no longer going to be there, they went and they attempted to make a couple of other games, and they went back and did an Amplitude game. They went to Sony. Everybody seems to have gone home. Insomniac went home. All of a sudden, Harmonix went home and made an Amplitude remake, and now I think Harmonix they're probably done. I don't understand the bridge burnings that happened, and they were bona fide bridge burnings. You have to see the reality, and part of this is why they're in the position they're in.
Well, you just have to look at how people talk about relationships with Xbox and Microsoft as a whole. You look at how a good example, I'm not sure how you feel about him, but a perfect example is Cliff Bleszinski. If you talk to him about his feelings about the Gears of War franchise, like he burned himself on the way out, I'm sure, because of his personality. But there's certain things he talked about how Microsoft treats studios and people that work at the studios and everything else that's consistent across the board. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, they don't seem to nurture studios into success. They kind of just one and done them. Oh, this didn't succeed. Well, back
right. They look at it in corporate speak.
Like if you look at, like, imagine if Sony had played this like Microsoft. You look at Guerrilla Games and when they did Killzone Shadowfall, which is the worst selling, the worst reviewed, and one of the worst Killzone games that ever released. They could have just cut ties with Guerrilla and let them die.
Nope. Right. And
but
instead,
they were like, you know what? This IP's stale. Do something new.
And then Horizon Zero Dawn.
And you got Horizon Zero Dawn from that. Insomniac came back. What did Sony do? If they were Microsoft, they would have tried to make a new Resistance game, which I would have been okay with. But they were like, we want to do a Spider-Man game. And you look at the gameplay of Sunset Overdrive, and then you look at how the mechanics of a Spider-Man game, and
there's a little influence in there.
There's a studio that understands a movement system really well and how to execute it. So if we want to make a Spider-Man game, we should get a studio that's really good at that. And Insomniac was amazing. I was late to the Sunset Overdrive party by a couple of years, but I will not shut up about that game because that game did so much right. And the fact that I'm not going to say nobody bought it, but the fact it underperformed so
nobody bought it. I'll say it. Nobody bought it. They tried giving that game away, and this drives me nuts with Xbox gamers. You're in the position you're in right now because you don't buy these games, and this is a game that was better than solid and was critically accepted too. This game reviewed well and had the emotional backing of Insomniac too. They believed in this game, and it showed. And Xbox gamers said, "Well, it's not a first-person shooter, so I'm not gonna buy it." And that's just the hard truth.
Yeah, no,
That's the
it's
hard truth.
100% because the 360 was built on that market, and unfortunately, that market is, I'm not going to say very small, but it's very narrow in what you can sell to it, unfortunately. And it's the same situation I find that what happened to Rise as well. Not a great game in terms of the amount of content, which you can argue, though, because the multiplayer and co-op added a fair amount of content to the game.
Right.
And the game was fantastic. It looked amazing, but is like they couldn't make a direct sequel, but they could have done something in like Viking time frame. They could have done something. There's so much potential for what they built with that game, and here we are almost 5 years later and got nothing.
And that's a studio they could go get.
Yeah. And see, that's what bugged me so much when people were like, oh, Microsoft could buy EA. Microsoft could go buy Valve. I'm like, no, why don't you go buy 5 or 10 medium-sized studios?
Go get Crytek.
Go get Crytek.
You know what? Get Sam Lake on the phone and say, you know what? I'm sorry how we did things. We need you, and come just get with us. I would guarantee you Sam Lake would love to be part of Microsoft. Are you kidding me?
You look at what Crytek did. This is what blew my mind with the Xbox One X. You look at what Crytek did graphically. Most of their games so ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to sell people a 4K console and you don't have Crytek launching a game on it?
Right.
That's a misstep to me. I'm trying to think of
go get Volition, who just got closed by EA.
Yeah.
Go get them.
They're cheap right now. They don't have anything.
Go get IO Interactive. Go get Hitman.
Yeah.
Go get, if you really are serious about spending money to get, which you have to do, you got to spend money to make money. They have to spend money to rebuild. But the thing is that if any company on the planet has the money to spend to rebuild, it's Microsoft. And they did it, like I said, they did it when they bought Mojang, and they've probably made that money back and then some. I'm sure that became profitable for them almost immediately. These studios that have gone under, that you could go get, that have talent.
Yeah. And you look at the amount of studios, every week it seems like we're seeing more and more studios layoffs, stopping production on games. Those are opportunities.
Yep.
And Sony has done a good job of grabbing those up. Microsoft has the potential. They did it with Cuphead. They need to start jumping on those because there are some gems they'll never make it unless...
Well, they don't own Studio MDHR.
No.
They should.
They just gave them money. They should have bought
them. They should have bought them. They should have bought oh no, who makes Ori and the Blind Forest?
Oh, they're hiring right now too. I saw it this week.
Moon Studios.
Yeah,
because they're making the sequel. Go get him. Go get Jesus, get that guy on the phone and say, you know what? Just come be part of Microsoft. And after you're done with Ori and Will of the Wisps, make something else.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm not on the Phil Spencer can do no wrong train just yet.
I'm very much in the middle line with you on that. I think he's done some good things. Like there's no denying that, but there's opportunities. Like I'm not in the boardrooms, I'm not at these meetings, but if there's not someone screaming at the top of their lungs, this is what 98% of our messages are. Like you go into anything, the Xbox Twitter posts or even the Facebook, people are like, when are you going to get more exclusive games? When are you going to start? That's 98% of the comments. If that's the feedback you're getting, you need to fix it.
Yeah.
And buying EA, buying Valve, which was a bizarre rumor in itself, that's not going to solve your issues because those games are still going to be available. If you buy EA, you're not going to make Madden an Xbox exclusive.
Oh, they could.
They could.
They could. But then, and this was my point about EA, was now you had Phil, like I said, you had Phil just saying, I'm not putting out a baseball game because I don't want to pay the Players Association fees. So you're gonna buy the one studio that has nothing but
sports titles with association fees,
right? That you're gonna have to pay for. That's why I knew that was BS from the beginning, because there's no chance in hell that they were buying that.
I was gonna say, the thing with EA is they're very smart at monetizing their games, and people can complain about how EA monetizes their games, but the amount of money that my co-workers that are casual gamers spend on things like the what's it called, the Madden, like the card system.
The ultimate, or like
the ultimate
the ultimate teams.
Yeah, the amount of money some of my co-workers spend on ultimate teams every year sells like 12 copies of that game.
That's why EA is so good at FIFA, at selling FIFA, because that's
FIFA is a money laundering association for them, basically. That prints money.
Something else Microsoft lost.
Yeah, they lost the FIFA deal. They lost the COD deal. It blows my mind that they couldn't lock down Bungie for Destiny marketing. It's a shooter, right?
Well, they got PUBG for however long they got PUBG. But what's really funny is PUBG will go to PlayStation. Lawbreakers didn't come to Xbox because Lawbreakers is dead.
The Lawbreakers is dead, and I'm pretty sure Cliff Bleszinski's burning bridges tactics.
And you know what? I said this, and I stand by it. I said it on NLG. I will stand by it. I firmly believe that he is kicking himself. That he had the opportunity to bring Lawbreakers to the Xbox, if not first, at least day and date with the PlayStation version. He had an audience that would have gone berserk for his game because it's Cliff Bleszinski. He thought that audience was all on PlayStation, and it's not.
It's actually interesting. You talk about his audience and how he was trying to gear himself towards that. And it's interesting because there was a rumor I was reading. God, I think it was on NeoGAF when NeoGAF was still around. And this was a guy who has worked for some studios and everything else. And he said the reason why Lawbreakers didn't come to Xbox first was because Cliff Bleszinski basically showed up at Xbox, went, "This is my game. Give me insane amount of millions for this game." And Phil Spencer and Aaron Greenberg apparently just looked at him and were like, "No, we'll pass." So he went to PlayStation with a lower number, and PlayStation went, "Yeah, all right. What the hell? We'll give you some money. You've got a bit of a name to you." I think Cliff Bleszinski's biggest mistake was thinking that his name would sell his game. There's very few developers that can sell a game just on their name alone. And
I can only think of one.
And who's that?
Hideo Kojima.
Yeah.
Okay. Hideo Kojima.
This is the only man in the
world.
Bizarre
as Death Stranding is and is looking like it's going to be, it doesn't matter. It's got his name on it. It's going to sell bonkers.
See, that's what I love about him, too, is I love his personality. I love how he does interviews. And I just love how he does his games because he literally does not care about doing what's popular. He literally is like, this is what I want to do. Yep. People are like, okay. Like all the trailers for Death Stranding, I have no idea what this game is about.
He doesn't know.
Like, I'm like, okay, so we got the guy from Walking Dead. We've got this. Okay, so this is, okay. This, what? There's a baby? What? Okay. I'm still buying it day one, but...
But we have no idea what the hell it is.
Yeah, we have no idea what it is, and he's one of the few developers that has a strong fan base behind his name, and he certainly earned it through the years. He has had his missteps, and I am a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, and I'm not a huge fan of 5 at all. But that being said, mechanically and everything else, the game's great. It didn't make any sense, unfortunately, and I fear for Death Stranding for that. But
right,
Cliff Bleszinski thinking that he could sell. I don't even think Rod Ferguson could sell a third-person shooter by himself with just his name alone. And he is basically the face of Gears of War now. Like, only the people that played in the 360 era of Gears know who Cliff Bleszinski is. Really and truly.
Yeah, but I just think that I think the Xbox community would have completely embraced this game.
I 100%. Lawbreakers would sell hotcakes on Xbox. And it's because it's a shooter.
I don't think it will, but I don't think it will now because he's burned that bridge.
When you go out of your way on social media to not single out a single person in a community and be like, this person's treating me like crap, where you say the whole community as a whole is garbage and treats you like crap.
Yeah.
Don't expect them to buy your game.
No.
That's why I'm always very careful with how I talk about games and how I talk about developers and everything else, because you never know when it'll come back to bite you.
Yep.
and I'm not going to lie. And if you look through Cliff Bleszinski's Twitter, he went from being like 50 tweets a day to he's like 2 to 3 a day, maybe. We're not talking about Lawbreakers. We're not currently developing anything. I'm enjoying my time. That is
look at my hot wife.
That's tail between the legs. I screwed up. It's my fault. I don't know what I should have done. Well, he knows what he should have done differently.
He knows what he should have done. We all know what he should have done. And I don't look. This literally this is a, you can call it, console war. You call it fanboyism. It's not. It is an objective look at at where that game should have been. It's like people complain that all these Eastern-centric games are going to the PlayStation, and none of them are coming to the Xbox. Neo didn't come to the Xbox.
Nier
Automata, Ni no Kuni 2. Guess what, guys? There's a reason. That's Sony's bread and butter audience. There is a reason that happens, and all you have to do is look at Final Fantasy sales and understand that it is almost a 3 to 4 to 1 ratio of people buying Final Fantasy on the PS4 over the Xbox One. And it's not like, look, yes, in the global market, the PS4 has a 2 to 1 margin over the Xbox One. In the United States, it is not 2 to 1. In North America, Canada as well.
Yeah.
It's not 2 to 1. Yes, PlayStation is outselling the Xbox One, but there's probably about a million and a half gap between them. It's not even close to what the Xbox 360 PS3 gap was, which at the end of the generation was about 15 million in North America. Yeah. And yet the ratio of folks that buy those games, there's a reason that they're on the PlayStation, and rightfully so. They buy those games. Nier Automata did extremely well. I expect that some of these other ones coming out. I expected Final Fantasy to do much better on the PlayStation. That's kind of its home. So it's you play to your audience. Cliff Bleszinski did not play to his audience.
No. And it's interesting when you bring up the Japanese games as kind of our last branching topic of
this.
As
this upcoming 3-hour podcast. I warned you.
Is with Monster Hunter World that came out, which is considered your quote-unquote niche Japanese title. And it sold well on Xbox. I think it's staying at like a 28%, almost 30% ratio to the PS4.
Yeah.
And do you think going forward, if Xbox can turn out more sales like that on the games they do get, do you think that will entice these developers like Ni no Kuni 2 and everything else to bring their game, maybe think about bringing their games to the Xbox platform?
No, because yes, 28 to 30%, but that's still 28 to 30% versus 70% on the other platform. There, Square Enix can absorb that.
Yeah.
They can absorb that hit. Capcom can absorb that hit. So, I was surprised to see Monster Hunter World. I really was. No Monster Hunter game had been on it before, so it was, but in Nier Automata, I don't know that there's enough money to be made back on it if it came to the Xbox. I think a game like that, I think with the split would be 80-20 even better.
Yeah.
It's not what if you can't get the Xbox community to buy Sunset Overdrive, you're sure as hell not going to get them to buy Nier Automata.
Yeah. I agree. And in games like Persona and everything else, they wouldn't sell.
There's no way in hell. That's why Atlas, I scratch my head sometimes. Well, why doesn't Atlas put their games out on the Xbox? And then I realized because Atlas, even though they're owned by Sega, they don't have same reason Sega doesn't put the Yakuza games on the Xbox. There's no market for it.
Which makes me so sad because I actually picked up Yakuza 0 on my PlayStation a couple of months back. And that's such an amazing franchise. I'm sitting there going, I missed out on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there going, why isn't this on another platform?
Because it wouldn't sell on another platform.
Because it wouldn't sell on the platform that I prefer. And it sucks to an extent when you're missing games, not because of marketing deals or money finance, just because other people that purchase that platform don't have the interest in the diversity of the games.
Yep. And with the rising cost of game development, it was easy on the original Xbox to bring those games over, which is why you saw Jade Empire, which is why you saw, some of those games there. It was easy to bring them out on the Saturn and the Dreamcast and stuff like that because it was, there was also a market in Japan. That's the other thing. There's a market in Japan for the PlayStation games. There's no market in Japan for Xbox. None. There never will be, and that's something that they just have to live with. And so it's just if you're gonna pay that much for development, you need to see a return on investment. There just isn't a return on investment on the Xbox side for these games. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and it won't change anytime soon.
It comes down to a business decision. That's what it comes down to. I don't believe for a minute because Square Enix puts tons of games on the Xbox. I don't believe that there's a dislike of Microsoft by Atlas. I don't think there's a dislike of Microsoft by, stuff.
The only thing Atlas hates is PC gamers. That's the only thing Atlas has openly said that they don't like.
Although I think the other bridge that probably got burned to the ground on both ends is Platinum Games. I think you'll never see a Platinum Games exclusive Xbox game anymore, ever.
Yeah, I don't know. The head studio just doesn't seem to be a fan anymore.
No. And I'm sure there's still some behind-the-scenes stuff going on with that.
I'm sure there is some interesting the amount of rumors and things that went on.
There is
that whole cancellation.
Yeah,
plus there's the mudslinging afterwards. And
no way in hell that there were not some ramifications, that there was not some shenanigans that went on in this game development. No way.
There was no way that Scalebound being where it was and then where the build was a year and a half later and then Nier Automata came out fully finished and polished was Platinum equally spending their time.
Yeah. Oh, come on. They was in the time that they were developing that, they put out Nier Automata, they put out Transformers, they put out a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. They pumped out other games while Hideki Kamiya was fiddling around with Scalebound.
I was gonna say I'm blocked by him on Twitter, so
no, he blocked. Yeah, I am. So
I got tagged into a conversation I didn't want to be a part of, and yeah, I'm blocked. So
oh yeah.
There goes I'll never get him on this show, apparently.
Yeah,
that's a bridge burner.
All right. Well, now that I have sufficiently pissed off Tick by being on here for almost 3 hours, I think they went on without you.
It's fine. I'm not on podcast, so it's all right.
Oh well, no, they were trying to be nice to us and not start because we were on, and then Anchor said, "Screw it," and they're on now. So.
I give them credit. This went a lot longer than I expected, but this is exactly what I wanted from this. And this is what I want from this going forward too, with these one-on-ones. I might even have you on at a later date again because
anytime, man.
Because I feel like, and it's people like you and a fellow I follow on Twitter, Forget Amnesia. It's people like you guys that give me a better understanding of the industry as a whole and what goes into the actual development and everything else. I feel like that's a knowledge that is not on social media and not a lot of people understand. I have actually been accused of being a dev protector and dick rider because I constantly will say if a game's delayed, then so be it. It was required. It's for the betterment of the game. And that makes me a horrible person.
Of course. Boy, but say something bad about a game reviewer.
Oh, God. But I really want, and what I want with this series is I want people to understand and be able to watch this and get a better understanding of what goes on, understand media better. And I feel like if people actually sit down and watch this almost 3-hour show,
this is why I'm not on Multiverse more, by the way. Just so you know. He tried the last time I was on to keep it to an hour and fail.
and people, if they sit down and watch this, they'll have a better understanding. Like even myself, and I write and I do videos and everything else, I learned more in the past 2.5 hours than I probably learned from watching and reading 50 articles or videos that are
I appreciate that. It means a lot. I have a look, there are many people who have been in the industry for a longer time than me who are better than me at what I did. I did this casually. This was my second love. To give you an idea, when we started, and I'll just let's see if there's I'm fortunate enough. And I'll share my screen real quick. I'm fortunate enough that the Internet Archive Wayback Machine has been able to capture about 468 of our pages. So back in 2001, this was our original design. This is where we started, and in fact, that was our original logo, and we tried right off the bat to do everything we could to be part of the industry, to make it with the big boys. And we had some great stuff that went on. We had an interview with Don Bluth in 2002, the man who made Dragon Slayer and Secret of Nim. We got to talk to that man. And so these are the things that I remember the most. And as we went on in life, we changed our design, we changed our logo, we got picked up by UGO Networks, which was a really great network of websites. And they, we got pop-ups. We had advertising back then that allowed us to at least put some money towards E3. So it was easier for us to afford to go to E3 every year and for me to bring 3 or 4 people and for us to really get in there and kick some ass. Let's see, real quick. I won't take too much time up, but I have some great, and back when E3 was in May. So we had a full crew on the ground, during E3 that had on, that went behind the scenes and went, got a chance to look at things, on the floor and, back when it was a media show and not what it's becoming now. And, we were at these press conferences as media. These were the things that is my favorite handheld system, the PSP. These are the things we were able to do. And as we went along, there were months that we hung with IGN and GameSpot because we would have to give third parties numbers all the time in order for them to continue to give us products, continue to give us, we have, and I still have it over there, my debug Xbox 360, that we had to prove that we weren't just another fly-by-night site. So, we were an Amazon affiliate. A lot of times we had, unfortunately, the Wayback Machine doesn't pull a lot when it comes to pictures and stuff. But, this was my second to last E3. And, we went at this like pros. And we tried different things. We had NLG Sports, which was a, when I reviewed games, for example, I'll give you a great example of a game real quick. From a great developer that's no longer around. And you talk about THQ having some incredible IPs that they own. Pandemic Studios put out a game called Full Spectrum Warrior. It was a war game not like anything else that you ever played. It wasn't first person. It was a third person strategy game. The Wayback Machine did cache a couple of pictures, and I have all this on my hard drive. So all my videos and stuff I kept. But this is the kind of stuff I used to do. Instead of just writing stuff flat out, I tried to bring something a little different to my writing. So, I like this particular preview I did as a news reporter, for NLG News, and I pretended to interview one of the people in the game, and that's how I wrote the preview. So we had all of this going on, and this thing went strong until about 2007 when I had to retire. But when all was said and done, we were able to get some great interviews with people. We talked to the guys behind Studio Gigante who did WrestleMania 21. We talked to guys at Konami. Like I said, we had, we interviewed Infinity Ward CEO when Call of Duty 2 was out. We had some great interviews. Like I said, I interviewed the guys who did, Peter O'Keefe and Dan Stevens, those guys who are still around. I can never remember their real names these days, but they're still around. And so and all of our news, this was the other thing. When we did news, and some of our news pages aren't there, but it's hard because it didn't cache everything. When we did news, we took press releases and we simply just took out all the gobbledygook in them, and that's what we posted. We didn't put our commentary to it. We didn't put, we didn't put a spin on it. We simply just reported the news. We saved our spin for our previews and our reviews and our editorials, But when we did all this new stuff, all of these were really just repostings of press releases because we didn't want people to we wanted people to do this on their own. We wanted to here. So this is one of them. This was straight up just a press release. And then we took some of the quotes out and made quotes and stuff, but we didn't put our spin on it. And then if you really wanted to, you could go into the forums. We had a forums, and you could go in there and you could talk about that there. But we just, and that's the way I have always tried to keep myself. Is we tried to just be a news site. And this, anybody who wants to go and look, it's web.archive.org and just punch in NL Gaming, and there's a ton of it there. And I'm very proud of the work that we did. I'm very proud of the team that I had. Everybody took it seriously, even though we all had full-time jobs of our own. We treated this like it was our passion. And a lot of companies took notice of that. And we fought and scratched and fought for every view on that site. We fought to get our review copies. We fought to get preview copies. We never really got in with Nintendo because their PR department was horrible at the time. It's a company, Golan Harris, and they were impossible to deal with. But
I don't think it's much better now.
It's not. And it's really funny because my Microsoft rep at the time we got started, his name is Arnie Meyer. Excellent guy. He's been a friend of mine for many, many years. He's been at Naughty Dog for years. He's their PR manager.
Okay.
Pete Hines is still at Bethesda. Peter Moore, unfortunately, not around anymore. He's running Liverpool football. But let me tell you, that man, one of my favorites of all time in this industry. And I met him when we did the Sega Dreamcast HQ site. I've had dinner with him. I went up to New York for the 360 launch event that he was at. And then at E3, there wasn't an E3 that I wouldn't be up in Microsoft's booth. And he wouldn't stop for a minute to say hi, see how my family was, see what was going on. Even if he had to run to another meeting, shake my hand. How's things going? What's going on in Maryland? Hey, I got to run, but I just wanted to say hi. It was a man among men as far as and what he did for every company he worked at: Sega, Reebok, Microsoft, EA, and I expect Liverpool to win the cup. That's what he was. So,
and you can look as you said, you look at all the companies he was part of, all the success he brought those companies, and where he is now. You don't get that not knowing what you're doing and not being a people person by any stretch of the imagination.
I'll never forget the Halo tattoo, which is real, and the Grand Theft Auto 4 tattoo, which is not. But man, I remember that moment sitting in the Microsoft press conference when he rolled up his sleeve, and then on the screen was Grand Theft Auto 4, and you just went. And that's what Peter Moore did for Microsoft. He got those third parties on board that they could never get. And now you say, well, who's the third party guy for Microsoft? I think it's Aaron.
I think so. I don't know. It seems so weird when it comes to third party with Microsoft, because you could tell PUBG came to Xbox because of Mike Ybarra.
Exactly.
And
who runs the indie department? That's Chris. That's Chris Charla.
Yeah.
Just like if I said who runs the indie department at Sony, as Gio Corsi. But I don't know who's making those deals at Microsoft. I just don't know.
I don't. Hold on. Google's my best friend. Because I'm curious. Because now I don't honestly know. Like who's? I'm pretty sure it's Greenberg.
I think it's Aaron too.
Third party at Xbox.
Hold on, I'm looking at he's GM of games marketing at Microsoft. So that's different.
Yeah, hold on.
That's not third party. I don't know.
It doesn't.
I mean, is Phil doing it?
It must be a combined effort because, like, all I'm reading is like it. Yeah, no, they don't. There's nothing listed for a third-party third-party relations. So I'm guessing it's a combination of Ybarra, Greenberg, and Spencer, which is just they've got the time for that.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Mike Booty now is the head of MGS.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know. And that's that's a problem. I mean, would you not agree? That's a problem. I don't know how you don't know.
See, there's always been this ongoing joke. I'm sure you know about it too. Is if you want to know what's coming to Xbox, you just need to look at what Mike Ybarra is playing.
Right. Right.
And he was saying there, he was talking about VR in the Microsoft Store and being able to use the Oculus Rift through the Microsoft Store. You could buy games on it, and people are like, "Does this mean VR is coming to Xbox now?" And he was like, "No comment." I'm like, "Oh God, really?"
Right.
Like, there's just, it just blows my mind that multi-billion-dollar company is so mismanaged.
Yeah.
Like I'm the amount of times I'm one of the few. I'm with Jez Corden. I was a Windows Phone fanboy.
Ah.
I love Windows Phone, but like everything Microsoft does is if it doesn't take off immediately, they killed it.
Right.
And I still have my Windows Phone. It's still sitting in my drawer, and it still works. I upgraded to a Samsung phone because they had no first-party apps for anything. I had to use a third-party app for Twitter, which was absolutely atrocious.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, no, that is definitely a big problem. But I'm gonna let you go now.
All right.
This is our
3 hour. We did it.
So thanks very much for coming on. It was fantastic.
This has been awesome, and we'll do this again anytime. I just love talking games, and it's my cross to bear. And now yours.
Yeah. Hey, and anytime you want to come on and reminisce about anything, I'm all ears for that, man, all the time.
Yeah, we got to get you on NLG. Sunday nights are hard for you, but man, we got to get you on.
Actually, I'll hit you up in the next day or two. I've got some holidays coming up, so
okay.
Like I don't work this Sunday night. I think I work next Sunday night, but I think I'm off the weekend after. So yeah, we can work something out.
We can pencil that in. Because tomorrow night we have Rick Lagnese coming on from Warhorse Studios. So
he is fantastic.
Oh, he's our buddy, man.
We had him on Multiverse. He was a blast.
He loves to come on, and it's great because he'll like hit me up during the week and go, "Hey man, got room for me?" Yeah, of course. But I have some special stuff cooking up for him. I have a special intro video cooked up for him tomorrow. I've got we're going to be running Kingdom Come footage while we talk, and then of course we'll have Juan's retro recommendation, which is going to be a pretty good one actually. But Rick is always a good friend of ours, and we love having him on. And I hope that this is a long career start for him with Warhorse because he's earned it.
Oh, he definitely has. He did such a good job on Multiverse, explaining the game, selling the game, and just generally explaining it, that my wife we double dipped, and I got on PS4 and Xbox because I'm playing the Xbox copy and she's playing the PS4 copy on the TV because she didn't want to share game time with me. So he's absolutely fantastic, absolutely great guy,
and just a wonderful guy in general. Just a good guy in general. So
and those can be hard to find sometimes.
Yeah. So we'll be on with him tomorrow night.
I'm off tomorrow night, so I'll actually be checking you guys live.
In the chat. On Twitch.
Oh, God, I have to sign up for a Twitch account.
Hey, it's not that bad. It's actually, I'll tell you what, it's not that different than watching it on YouTube. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But you'll find the quality of the video is much better. Yeah. It's a cleaner picture. It makes Juan's retro recommendations look better. It makes all the things we're doing look better. So, catch us on twitch.tv/OG_NL Gaming.
And if you need to find anything about NLG Gaming, I already put all the links in the description. So you've got their Twitter, their Twitch, the YouTube. I'm not sure if you guys are doing anything with YouTube still, but
no, we really moved, and I'm working on moving some of our YouTube content over to Twitch. Twitch is where we want to grow our audience.
Yeah. And so you can find all the links there. And so that's it for this. Thanks for coming on, Mike. It's always a blast.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
All right. And thank you guys for tuning in. And exciting news going forward, if I can secure the funding for it, the podcast and these one-on-ones will be available on iTunes.
Awesome.
So that'll be exciting. So you'll be able to download it on Podcast Addict and everything else. And so thanks for coming on, and everyone have a fantastic Saturday night.
Absolutely.